welcome to the Brie Pod. I'm here with me, Brie. So last time we spoke, we talked about how I was going to be going to Oregon to talk to my surgeon, to go see the orthodontist, and just kind of see where everything is at. And here I am, with some information to share with everybody. Some of you may have seen on Instagram and TikTok, and I believe Facebook at this point. I started sharing stories on how I'm prepping for surgery. My plan for this is just to share the prep and then have surgery day, and then bring you along the journey after that and start all over again, start calling it, post surgery. So I don't know if I'll be able to speak a lot, but I'll at least share a photo every day to kind of show you where I'm at. It is probably going to get a little gross, not to be, weird about it, but it is surgery. And so the aftermath, it's not like you're going to see, I'm not like showing you the surgery itself, but, there's parts of it that are not pretty. Not that it would be, but just want to forewarn you that, that is why I'm trying to keep it kind of mm, PG, I guess. So yeah, so we'll see what happens from there. But um, if you want to follow me to watch those, it is on Instagram. You can put at the Brie Pod, spelled like cheese, Brie, or on TikTok. I couldn't get a Brie Pod, so I have the underscore Brie underscore pod. Um, and you can follow me and my daily prep. Um, so with that being said, let's talk about what happened with the surgeon. So first things first, I had every intention of bringing a list. I had a list of questions. Luckily, I can memorize my list, so I knew what I was going to ask. However, I was very sad to be going in there and not having the list because it was kind of a crazy start to the new year. So on the 31st, right, we were getting prepared to go to Oregon on the 1st. I had 3 scheduled appointments for the 2nd. And on the 31st, we're realizing, hey, we're gonna have to get going, like get everything prepared. And next thing you know, we can't find Jeremy's driver's license, which I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna be horrible because you're supposed to be there with me. Freaking out. Long story short, our son, he's so cute. He's 15 months old and he's learning that you put things away. So he found Jeremy's wallet probably on our side table next to the bed, and he put it away, except he put it away in the bathroom, which is at the bottom drawer, and that bottom drawer has my hair products, it has my feminine products. So we didn't see, first off, we didn't think to look in the bathroom. Secondly, not in that spot anyway. You know, it's in the bottom drawer and it's mixed in with my feminine products. So kind of funny how it all went about. But anyway, long story short, found the driver's license. So with this being said, I got a little scared because I was thinking, oh no, um, if this is the start to our year, what's it gonna be like when we get to Oregon and everything? So now fast forward back to the surgeon's office. You can kind of see how you'd be a little freaked out if you're me of like, oh no, I forgot my, you know, um questions. But I was overwhelmed and stressed and anxious over this appointment the whole day. And I had already done 2 other appointments with the ortho, and she basically was like, we don't have to move any teeth at all now. You're at a place where you're ready for surgery. So that's scary because now it's making it more real. So then when I get to the surgeon, it's like it's going to be even more real. So I was already all over the place mentally and emotionally. So when I got there, I'm freaking out because I don't have this list. But then I'm, trying to remind myself, okay, you're very good at remembering things. So just remember what you wrote down. And luckily I did. So I started asking the questions. And I know I kind of went in a circle here, but here we go. the first question was I needed to know who is going to be on his team. Like who is physically going to be doing work on my mouth. And to go back for a second, I have been in, I've had a couple of surgeries in my life, nothing too big, and I've also had my son. And the thing is, I've never been anyone that's against having somebody to come into, the room with me, but um, I, what I mean is I don't mind when students come in and watch and everything, but in this case, it's such a serious surgery that I'm afraid to have any of that. Like with it was different with birth where it was like, okay, people come in, they watch, they leave, you do your thing. And this was like I was just worried, I just want the guy that I asked to do the surgery. So many of you that know the medical field know there is a difference between a resident and a student. Had I not known this information prior to going in, I think I would have done what I didn't want to happen. And what I mean by that is that I didn't realize that there is a huge difference between a resident and a student, where a resident is a doctor that can actually do with the supervision of another surgeon, they can actually do some pieces of the surgery. So for example, um, what the surgeon said, if we were to have a resident, the resident could make the first, I think, cut incision, and then at the end, he could sew me back up. Knowing this, figuring out what a resident is versus a student, I just asked him, that's why I asked point blank, like, who's on your team? What do they do? What are their roles? And he mentioned that he possibly could have a resident. And so I was like, okay, well, what does that resident do? And that's where I just explained what. So I was like, here's the thing. I want you. And you're allowed to do this, just so you know, in case you're ever getting surgery and you're like, oh, am I allowed? Yes, you are, because you're paying for it and because, at the end of the day, you went in for that person. So I will not be having a resident helping with the surgery. I do not want that. And it's no offense to them. I know they need their practice, but this surgery is so serious to me. And even online, reading about it being serious, I'm not willing to be that person. And it's just not to be rude. It's just not for me. So I let them know I do not want that. And they put that in their notes, and I also have to remind him day of in case he forgets, which I will not let him forget. So on surgery day, I will not have a resident. I will have obviously his other team members, which will be there to help him assist with giving them tools, making sure I'm okay, making sure the blood's not going to my stomach, and so on and so forth. The second question that I asked goes back to that question, which is, will you be pumping or vacuuming out the blood from my stomach? Because one of the things I read online, and I know surgeons and doctors and medical care do not want to hear you say that, but how else am I going to learn? I mean, I know I can ask questions too, but I like to be in some form of prepared. So I asked, will you be able to vacuum out the blood? They're like, yes, we have, um, there's like this little thing that goes down your throat a little bit and it catches the blood and then they have the vacuum. So then the next question I had asked, I was going to ask on this list if I could talk to previous clients, but forgot the list. So that's the one question I forgot, but everything else I remembered. So the next question I had asked, like, is there anti-nausea medication that's being given after, surgery? Because I know for myself, anytime I go under and I come out of anesthesia, I always feel a little bit nauseous. So the worry that I had is that I'm gonna feel nauseous and I'm not gonna be able to say anything. and that scares me. Um, so with that being said, um, I just kind of ask, like, what do I need to do for that? Now, they are going to prescribe me stuff for anti-nausea and they will give me stuff for anti-nausea during the surgery, but they said there's nothing wrong with letting the anesthesiologist know this day of. And I'm supposed to hear from them soon because, of course, you have to go through their paperwork and the things that they need. Um, because they're going to also tell me, like, what I can and cannot do before surgery. Now, technically, I did get this information, but they also have to do it too. So I eventually will be hearing from the anesthesiologist, just not yet. Um, and so then overall with the doctor, I think I just went over a lot of my worries about pain. What's it gonna feel like? What do I need to eat? What do I need to drink? Um, I learned a really positive thing for me, not for other people, but like a lot of the stuff that I was reading was for both double jaw surgery versus lower. So a lot of the fears that I had felt calmer because it's only one jaw happening. Um, because some of the things that I read is that sometimes it's hard to breathe after surgery, and sometimes you end up puking blood, which this still could possibly happen, just not as bad if you were having the upper, because as you know, everything near the upper has to do with the respiratory system. So anything, like thinking about if you had a bloody nose, it goes down to your throat. So then it goes down to your stomach, and then you get sick. So some people have gone through that. Um, and I was reading all this stuff, freaking myself out, thinking, oh my goodness, I am so scared. I'm gonna be, so sick, and how am I gonna eat? Just worried about all these things. So the good news is that because I'm having lower jaw surgery, it will not be as bad in that sense where I shouldn't have a problem breathing. Um, and I shouldn't have to worry too much about what I read that were like horror stories. Um, so then I asked, basically what he expected of me. When do I get to chew again? And they do not want me to chew anything at all until I'm given that word, like, yes, you can chew now. So after I have surgery, the day after, I go directly to their office and we have like a kind of like a check in to see how I'm doing. They look at my mouth. They talk about the bands because after that second day, it will be me changing my bands out. Um, they're the first to change the bands out for me. Some of you may be wondering, what do you mean the bands? So before I even have surgery, I need to meet with my orthodontist the week prior, basically. And what she's going to do is she's going to take me into her office. She's going to put in these like hooks so that when I'm in surgery, first, everything keeps my teeth in place, but secondly, they can band my jaw where they want it to be placed. So the bands kind of almost like hold it together. That's at least how I interpreted it to be. Um, so with that being said, that very next day they change them out for me, but then after that I start to change them. And they say it's very easy to change these bands out. It's not anything crazy. Um, and then another question I had is like, let's say I do get sick, you know, will I hurt myself? Like I was afraid of different things. And they're like, if you do get sick, whether you take out the bands or you don't take out the bands, you can still get sick. The worst happens is that a band breaks. And if a band does break, you want to take off the other band on the opposite side. If it's not both, or however many are in there. And that's because they don't want there to be a misalignment. So that part was nice to know. So I can at least tell myself if it happens, like, you're okay. They did say if I do get sick, it is possible to expect to see blood because, it's possible that the blood can go, like we said, go down the throat into the stomach and so on and so forth. They said it's less likely compared to having upper jaw surgery, but when I'm in recovery, they can handle everything that happens in surgery, but recovery is a different thing because now I'm in new hands and it depends on how they, you know, treat me, if they have me up, so on and so forth. So that was the information that I received as far as, the worries that I had. And then it just went down into a breakdown of what's to be expected. And it made me feel good that, his head nurse is so thorough, and he is thorough. He did not leave until I was done with my questions. And he even showed me a video on like what is expected for my jaw to look like after, like where it's at and what it's supposed to look like once the teeth are finally aligned. Um, so I really appreciate that they're so thorough because I think it made a lot of the nervousness kind of calm. It doesn't mean that I am full blown calm because I am scared, but I can sleep a little bit better because before I even went to this meeting, well, I should say appointment, I was scared and I didn't know what to expect. So I feel like after talking to them, I feel a lot better. The other thing that I really appreciated is I told the head nurse, I was like, I don't know if this is weird to ask because she told me that she'd be next to me as everything was going down. I was like, I don't know if this is weird to ask, but is it possible if you would hold my hand? Because one of the things that scares me every time I go under is the part where you start to fall asleep and everything starts to go away and that lack of control, and I know it's horrible, but that lack of control is where I'm like, "Ah, this is my death. This is where I'm gone. I can't save myself anymore. Not that I could prior, but still, this is the thought process that I have. It's just nice to know that she'll be there the whole way through. She's gonna be there the day of surgery. She's there before surgery. She's there the day after the surgery. She's there a week after, and every follow-up appointment after that. And that is something that I feel I need, and I know I don't want to say it's weird. It's nice to have someone you recognize going through this process because it's so vulnerable and it's so scary. Not talking about my support system, but talking about the team that's actually, you know, doing it. To have to have my orthodontist still with me the whole time, to have the head nurse and the surgeon with me the whole way until I'm, you know, free of infection, and if that happened, or free of whatever ailments could happen after surgery, they're there. That really means a lot to me because in other cases, obviously with the small things that I had done, it's not like those healthcare provider or nurses were around. So I get like an attachment thing to them, or I guess. So that made me feel, I guess, more comforted in the fact that she was willing to hold my hand. Because it is scary. And I am maybe 33 years old, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I'm totally an adult and I can handle it. Like I am, yeah, I am okay with that. So I feel good about that as well. The next thing we talked about is the different things that she felt maybe needed, or that have helped other patients during their recovery. And so I was gonna actually go over the whole Amazon list with her that I created, but unfortunately, unfor unfortunately, my phone died literally when I went to go show her my Amazon cart of saved items. But again, I had a piece of paper and I remember anything I write down. So, we discussed the different things that I should get that some people said helped, and then the different things that people have talked about, but doesn't mean it's had like any proof that it is helpful, which is the red light therapy. Um, and they don't mean that there isn't proof out there in other terms. I think was specifically to their office. Um, so I have a list of things that I'm gonna get, but I'm waiting until I get to Oregon because it seems kind of ridiculous for me to send all this stuff to myself right now and then we drive over to Oregon versus being in Oregon and just having it shipped to where I'm going to be and having it there. Makes the most sense. So we talked about the list. She talked about different ways of, you know, making like I had a folder, and it has all the expectations of what's going to happen before surgery, day of surgery, after surgery, food ideas, all these things. And one of the things that we talked about was definitely having a syringe to drink and eat from, um, a chemist syringe because the way that it's shaped. And also what she said too, because I asked her, I was like, I've done a lot of research about the surgery, but it seems from talking to the doctor that I may have done more research on a double jaw surgery than a lower jaw. So from what you know and from what you've seen, obviously without worrying about going at somebody's HIPAA rights, but like, what advice can you give me? And so she said that I have an advantage by not having the top be the upper jaw surgery because that part will not be numb. The whole bottom jaw is gonna be numb. My lip, my chin, my gums, everything is gonna be numb. And that's why they say that it's not necessarily that you'll feel a lot of pain, but you'll definitely feel uncomfortable. Um, and so with that, she was saying that what is a upside to this is having that syringe. I could use the top of my roof of my mouth for reference because some people that have double jaw surgery, they actually have to look into a mirror to watch themselves drink, and then they have to drink a certain way because they accidentally choke on their water. Um, because you can't feel anything, so you're just trying to feed yourself, you know? So I'm very thankful that it's the lower alone and that I'll have some things to my advantage. And I do feel bad for people that have to go through that, but in this case, I'm glad to know that there will be reference points for me with eating and drinking and so on. They said that one of the biggest things is the first day I need to make sure, and this is surgery day, that I try to drink as much as I can, even though it's going to be very difficult for me. But this is going to help prevent future issues of the week. They said your first day will basically determine what happens to you your second day. So if I don't drink any water, then I'm going to end up being more dehydrated, and then that creates all the issues from dehydration. Doesn't mean like it'll be the worst thing in the world. I'm not saying again that I want to be that way, but it's just that that first day is really the key to what the second day and the third day and so on can be. So I do plan on trying my best to just make it happen. Just drink. She did say that a lot of and I think I mentioned this a little bit before, but a lot of people that have had the surgery complain more so of the sore throat and the drooling. And she said the thing is with the drooling, you really, really, really want to keep on top of keeping your lips moisturized. So, and they have like this little tub of um oh my gosh, this happens every time. Lip balm. Um, they said keep up on that because if you don't, your lips get dry, they crack, and now you've got that pain too. And even though you're numb, it doesn't mean your mouth is not in some form of a pain. You're gonna be uncomfortable, and your lips are gonna look all crazy. So, you know, keep on top of yourself is basically what was said there. As far as sleep wise goes, I have to sleep on my back, which is fine. I kind of started that the very first time I had eyelash extensions was when sleeping on my back started. And ever since then, I guess my body just kind of conformed to it, even though I didn't it's not like I had extensions that many times. It's just my body's like, oh, okay, this is your life now. So, I'm gonna be all right with that, but um, that's something that they said. But there's a point where when you're laying down, because of what they did with the jaw surgery, this is obviously talking about post now, um, you're going to feel pressure if you're too far back. So that's why they suggest that you can either sleep with a bunch of pillows to keep you lifted, or you can sleep on a recliner. And my goal is to sleep on a recliner, just so I don't have, because sometimes with pillows, I just need that certain comfort, and the recliner kind of just gets you there. So I plan to do that. Um, and then she said, you'll know. And a lot of stuff she said, your body's gonna know. Like when you eat, you're gonna know when you went too far. Um, Obviously they really don't want you to chew because that moves the alignment of how they want your jaw. So you really can't chew. It's just a matter of soft foods, smoothies, and liquids. Um, and the other thing that they said was that, again, I cannot start soft foods necessarily until they give me the go ahead, but I specifically cannot start soft foods that you have to chew or any food that you have to chew until they say so. So overall, I felt it was a really good um like appointment. It was 2 hours long. Um, we had to pay the full price down of my mouth and how much it's gonna cost us. Luckily, because of all the things that I have to do, this is medically a medical procedure, so a big portion of medical was taken care of. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't. I don't know if we'd continue to do it or not. Um, and I think it's important to know it's not full-blown cosmetic. Some people, I think, are wondering, why are you getting it? And it just goes back to if I would have stayed on the path that I was on, which was nothing, because I have an overbite, an underbite, and the lower jaw is back. So if I would have continued with this, the teeth that were moving at the top on the overbite, they're moving out. And I thought like with time, the whole time I thought they just stay in one spot and that's it. But I could start to tell as I got older that my teeth were actually flaring out more and more versus just staying where they were. So what they would have done is continue to flare, 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 and finally just be in a position where they're loose and fall out. Now, it's sad to say that would have happened like right away, but it's not something I want to wake up to one day. And then the second thing is they said that, with moving this jaw, that'll help widen the area for me to breathe. And it's not to say I've ever felt like I can't breathe, but he did say that I'm going to notice a big difference. So I'm curious to see what that's going to feel like. Because when you're used to something your whole life, it's hard to think outside of that. So it will be new. Just like with, even though from an outsider's point of view, some may not be able to see the changes of what's happening because, I guess unless you've like looked at me a lot, you may not notice, but people may. And that was one of the things I had talked to the surgeon about too, because the first thing he said is your face won't change. It's not like it would be like some new person. And I didn't think that. But in one sense, for me, I will notice the change. And maybe some of you will too. Because for me, I've lived with the overbite and the underbite for so long in my life that my side profile is going to be completely different to me. And my front profile may not be as different, but it's going to be more defined because the lip that is kind of hiding under the overbite is actually going to come out and be in its rightful spot. And so there are things I think I'm going to notice that will be interesting to see. And again, I know that like that is cosmetic to think in that manner, but when you're getting it for medical, obviously the cosmetic is kind of like a part of it. But it doesn't mean that that's why I went for it. It's not. Because if I wanted to, I would have done it the first time when it was suggested. And the first time I just chose not to because I thought, well, why? Like, I've lived with my teeth this long, why bother changing them? What does it matter? And then Then when they started to talk about the things that it could affect in the future, I was like, okay, yep, you got me. Because that was the thing. I didn't realize what the issues could lead to. And I didn't realize some of the issues that I have could be almost not fixed perfectly, but in a better place. So, with that being said, I will be right back. Ironically, that was a phone call from the surgeon's office, and they were asking regarding, or they were letting me know that a resident will not be in the hospital at all that day. So, good to know. Oh, and then we also had to discuss FMLA forms for my husband. So that has been a fun time learning the different aspects of what you gotta do to get everything done and only have like, it sounds like, oh, well, girl, you have 29 days. Like, you're fine. No. We are, we have so much to do that it feels little days in little time. And then on top of that, working. Like, I still work for full time, and then, I have my son, and then my husband works full time. So it's still a lot in a little bit of time. So we're figuring it out. But overall, I was really happy about everything with the appointments. And um, now it's just kind of, I think, the unknown, walking into the unknown. And so I do plan on taking you guys throughout the journey on my stories, like I said, through TikTok, just to keep you informed and in the loop. And I do still plan on having maybe a couple more um, podcast episodes before I actually am out. But I don't know if it'll be just on surgery because, of course, this channel is all about calling back your power in all aspects of life. And we've kind of been, and then also you've been along my own journey and story with what's going on with me exclusively and personally. So I don't know if that's what will come about or if I'll have another guest before I go onto medical leave, basically. But um, that's basically what I'm up to and what's been happening. So if you have any questions, definitely ask me, shoot me a message, write it on YouTube, wherever you want, and I'll answer you. I was gonna do this via video and have both video and audio, but because I'm sick, you don't need to stare at my sick face. I don't want you to have to see it. It's ridiculous. I literally, from all the blowing my nose, I look like I've been crying for days. And then the funny part is, the reason why I had to put on a filter on myself, because you'll see in my stories I had a filter. I was trying to do kind of like one of the filters that are very natural, like close to natural as you can get. But because I'm sick, my eyes are a little bit bloodshot looking, so it looks like I'm high. And I'm not against it. If you get high, you get high. You don't. And I'm talking about marijuana. Like if you're high on heroin, I'm not really into those drugs, but I'm not against medicinal uses. But for me personally, I just can't. My body rejects everything. It rejects alcohol, it rejects marijuana, and rejects smoke. Not that not that smoke is kind of a normal thing to be allergic to, I think, for most. But anyway, point is that my body rejects it all. So I just don't. But you'd be looking at me being like, are you sure though? You sure? It's like, no, no. I'm just sick. I'm really just sick. So I decided, beep, let's not even do the video. So that's that. Anyway, you know how I like to ramble. So with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Brie Pod. Bye.